And we are live. And I'm live in the car. Not just because we're doing 15-minute cities today, but my garage is full of junk and it's not gone yet. So it is what it is. But here we are for another Charge Heads slash YEV, mainly YEV event. YEV.
Why not?
Exactly. Exactly. And what we talk about 15-minute cities. So 15-minute cities, there's a lot out there at the moment about control, about EVs, being turned off and, not allowing you to go to certain places. There seems to be a lot of, I hate using that word misinformation because I think that's going to be used. And you could argue some of the conspiracy theories might say that, misinformation is well, I'm a conspiracy theorist in a lot of ways. I personally think that the misinformation is going to be used as a control thing and start ruining freedom of speech. But that's another episode completely. So guys, I think Kevin's got a good spiel in terms of the definition of a 15-minute city. Let's start with that.
So I've been looking up the definition of 15-minute city, and basically it's supposed to be going back to the way cities used to be. Before cars, people could get everything within 15 minutes. And as cars grew, popularity grew, things got a lot further. So basically, it's trying to get back to that community thing where you could get everything within 15 minutes, not to stop you going 15 minutes. It's that you should be able to get all the things you need within 15 minutes. I mean, and if you took that as a concept now, if you try to do that with traffic, the average, I think Alex was telling me the average speed is about 20 miles an hour. So that would be like, 4 miles? So it's like cities used to be before they were massive, sprawling things with lots of out-of-town shopping centres. It's more getting back to that community and making things so you can walk and so you have the ability to do things that keep you fit, you have good air quality, but it's not to stop you going anywhere.
So what is everyone going mad about for 15-minute cities at the moment? What do people think that 15-minute cities are all about? Because everyone's getting really angry, aren't they? They're like 15-minute cities. It's EVs are going to control us. Why do people keep going on about 15-minute cities being bad?
I think the big thing about it is that EVs embrace a lot of modern technology. So most EVs are connected cars. So you have real-time data and everything. I think people fear that connectivity, because it has the ability to be two-way, is going to basically mean people can shut down your EV. But it's important to note that EVs aren't the only cars with that technology now, because even the little Kia Picanto I've got now, which you class as, a fairly basic, quite low budget car, that's got 5G and connected nav and is connected. So if you could switch an EV off, you could switch a petrol car off exactly the same. So don't see what the conspiracy is really about.
It's funny, isn't it? Do you remember the plan for drivers that came out last year under the Sunak government? Big, long, it was pages and pages and pages of stuff. And some of it was really off the wall stuff, like culture wars, stoking the kind of conspiracy theory stuff. And actually 15-minute cities came up in that as a thing that they were going to limit the ability for local authorities to introduce this, things like this, where, try and curb people's freedoms and all the rest of it. It's a very strange thing for a government to latch onto a conspiracy theory in that way, I think, which is an oddity. But I think it's kind of got swept up in the whole thing, hasn't it? Changing in terms of the way that we move around, some of which is entirely necessary. And I think people have kind of thought, we're being pushed into EVs, we're being pushed into, getting rid of cars and all the rest of it, and we're having our freedom curtailed. And actually, it's not about that. I mean, actually, I think the car, as Kevin's been saying, is kind of in some ways it's enabled some amazing us to do some amazing things. And as a car enthusiast, I'm not putting the car down at all. But in some ways, we've then constructed our entire lives around the ability to get from A to B. I'm quite lucky here in terms of I've got a good shop, row of shops within 5 minutes walk away. I've got a pub quarter of an hour away. I've got good kind of transport links and stuff. Essentially, I kind of already live in a 15-minute city. But I think it's got swept up in that idea that, you know, you should maybe travel less, and that this idea that your ability to do what we're used to doing today, which is to pick up the keys to a car and drive anywhere we want, is being taken away, and that's never been proposed.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you say about, you know, we're used to having cars. I think, I don't know if anyone watched the Tesla video recently, but Elon, and everyone thinks he's bananas and mad and all the rest of it. You know, everyone, he does divide the crowd. I'm a believer in Elon personally. Dare I say it? I dare to say it, because great for the freedom of speech. You know, people might have conspiracy theories out there, which I think are quite true. And Elon bought Twitter for the fact of, you know, keeping free speech alive. That's the way I see it. And he was going on about in his recent Tesla video that, you know, car parks with the robo taxis and many other full self-drive vehicles, you can get in them, drive, and it's going to reduce the number of cars on the road. And let me just explain that. So we use our cars about 10 hours a week. So though all those hours during the week, other people could use our cars, but no one really wants that. So it's going to be like this is the future, as far as I'm concerned, and many other people in the transport industry, where, yeah, there'll be car enthusiasts and people enjoying cars like us, because we all enjoy cars. But there's people out there couldn't give a rat's ass, you know, where you pick up your phone like an Uber, press the button, robo taxi pulls up, you jump in it, takes you where you need to be, you jump out, and then off it goes again. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, the future. Whether that's anything to do with 15-minute cities, I mean, that could probably help to get you to the town centre. Then you can walk around, but jump on your micro mobility scooter. Micro mobility, that's not right. That's like mobility scooter. Sorry, micro mobility, like your e-scooter, what have you, to get where you need to, or something similar, or maybe some sort of family-friendly type electric short range vehicle. And yeah, it's just going to take away a load of cars off the road, and those car parks will turn into parks, which I see as being a great thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there was a big buzz about the whole shared mobility as a service, kind of multimodal car sharing stuff 10 years ago, and COVID has held things back a little bit. I mean, some of the examples that have and haven't worked. I mean, do you remember the Autolibre cars over in France, in Paris, where they kind of look like a vision of the future from 20 years ago, but hadn't really aged very well. So they were little electric cars, kind of silver things. I have a feeling they might have been kind of brushed steel type affairs, from what I can remember. I remember seeing them around. They always looked hammered, but they were finding people were sleeping in them and, you know, doing other things in them and all the rest of it. And the idea with that was you saturate the city with these cars, and basically you're never going to be that far away from one. You just pick up a car wherever you need it, leave it wherever you need to, and you could earn extra credits by picking that car up and dropping it off somewhere else. The trouble was, I mean, things like COVID don't help with that, because obviously no one wants to get in and out of a car that someone else has been, you know, breathing, coughing, farting in like 5 minutes beforehand. And that kind of whole shared mobility thing it starts to become a little bit, I think the COVID thing has kind of slowed that down. There is certainly mileage, I think, and this is one of the things I often say to people about the whole EV transition is, yes, we should be moving to EVs. I totally agree with that. But actually, one thing we do need is fewer cars. And this is where I get a little bit fuzzy with some of the robo-taxi stuff, is if you're going to have that, it should kind of almost follow on from really good public transport. I can understand that, you know, there's a need for the private side of things, but I think before we start getting into the point where it's kind of like, oh, we need to be changing laws and introducing, you know, lots of technology to try and do this. Let's improve the public transport that we've got and the active transport that we've got, and actually remove that dominance from the cars a little bit. You know, have cycle lanes, have good bus journeys, and so on and so forth. We need that. And you know, just taking everyone as they are now and moving them into an electric car is basically taking the problems we've got at the moment and repeating quite a lot of them in a different form. And this was, I think, something, I mean, I'm now going off on a little bit of a rant. This was something I wasn't so convinced about with the Tesla thing this week, is that Tesla's now got a platform where it doesn't have the requirement of having to accommodate an engine, doesn't have to accommodate having a forward-looking driver. So basically, you can have a wheelbase that's as long as you want and just fill that with space, right? You can have as much room as you want within that footprint. And And it seemed a bit strange to me to have a car like that and to only have 2 seats in it. To deny the owner the ability to kind of rent that out to fares who might have kids and so on. And so, groups of friends and families and so on. Seemed a little bit weird to have had it as a 2-seater. But, I think it's a good looking car. I can see the desirability factor of it, but it seems a step back to say doing that with Model 3, Model Y. Those cars would be better at that job than this kind of purpose-built cybercab is my view on it anyway.
Maybe they've done the research to realize that actually, whatever the percentage is actually only 1 or 2 people, because the space in the back was massive. You probably didn't see it. The boot was huge, enough space for like a couple of suitcases. But I completely agree with you, having other options. They had that big massive bus/van looking thing that was multiple people. But the Ys and the 3s, they have said that the brand new Model Y, Model 3, or the new Model Y coming out, cameras are going to be that good that the full self-driving is going to be actually doable, and they're going to be starting to do it in Texas and California, and they've got some route going between 2 locations. So I think we'll have those vehicles as well, because if they can do full self-driving as 4-door 5-seat vehicles, and then you've got the robo taxis that are purpose for cities or something like that, where it's going to be maybe the journeys aren't so long and there's not many people, but it'd be interesting. I think, was it Tony Seba? He saw that was the future of transport. It's this guy that talks about transport, and he sees it as I mentioned, a bit like Uber, where you just press a button, off you go. And Foxhound Follies just put there, yes, and good to meet you, by the way, buddy. Everything electric. Yes, with no cab driver, people won't respect them, and there'll be a mess. Well, you could argue that, a bit like a Johnny Cab from Total Recall, if people are going to be misbehaving in it, and I hate to say it because cameras are everywhere, and it's you could argue it's getting a bit totalitarian with certain things going on in Europe and other places, but they'll have cameras in them. So if people are misbehaving, you'll have an account. They'll take pictures and videos of what you're doing, and then you'll get fines, you'll get police, what have you. So I think that's how they would get away from it. Steve said make EVs cheaper. I think they're getting very cheap the more that they come in, but that doesn't go away from what we were saying, I suppose, about trying to get rid of more cars, because there's so many cars everywhere. And I know Steve's a massive car nut, petrol head like me, and like these guys. And there's going to be those places where you can enjoy cars, whether it's circuits and all the rest of it. But like, walking down a street and just everywhere, there's just cars everywhere. And most people couldn't give a F about cars, really. So it's perfect for those sort of people that don't want to own a car. They want it cheap transport, because that's what people want, And I suppose just another thing, it's the fact that you can do other things in the car. You can be productive, whether that's just looking at a phone or doing work, and that would be a nice place to be. Alex is going sideways.
Sorry, I was just putting it on mute. Sorry.
That's all right. Marlin May's just put, trying to launch a 2-seater robocab indicates a lack of belief in road congestion, in essence denying the evidence right in front of your eyes.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what Alex was saying. Yeah,
totally agree. Totally agree. There's better ways of doing it. There's better ways of doing it.
Well, you think of that footprint of the robot, you could make an automated London cab which can seat 4 and take up that same footprint of the road.
Or you could take the back bit of the cab, the functional bit of the cab, lose everything in front of that glass screen, space-wise, have an in-wheel motor at each corner, or a small drive unit at each end, or one end or the other end, and just use all of that space. I mean, it's all about the experience, isn't it, when you're inside the cab? And actually, the other thing that I was going to pick up on with the Tesla cab is the doors. Getting in and out of that car, the doors, as much as they've got that theatrical value for a presentation, whether they'll make the production version or not, who knows. Scissor doors that open straight up, or gull wing doors or falcon wing doors that they've actually got that technology within the group where they open out, within the footprint of the car. Most of these robocabs have sliding doors or some sort of special door that doesn't get into the way of pedestrians. Another thing that I thought was quite odd with the cybercab is those doors are going to open right into the path of somebody who's, walking past with on their phone, not paying attention. It seemed like a bit of an odd design decision to me.
Yeah, well, you never know what's going to change because there's always changes
Yeah.
with vehicles when they come out, aren't there? I mean, I don't think it'll have run 22s or 20s on the back and 18s on the front like we saw in the videos, and it was like a satin gold, Sahara
And
silver, or a certain racing gold as well.
and
Michael Good says, unfortunately, Musk says he's free speech, but then he uses Twitter to interfere with accounts of those he's politically opposed to. This has been proven. Yeah, I'd love to see some facts on that because I think you'll find it's the other way around as far as I've seen in terms of the Twitter files and the government interfering with Twitter and hushing up a lot of the COVID information. But that's a political debate. Maybe that's next week. So maybe that'll help. Drive a bit of traffic to the YEV podcast if we start getting really political. so yeah, the 15-minute cities though, I want to concentrate a little bit more on. I'm not going to name names of YouTubers out there, but people that I'll tell you what. I'll give you an example. There's someone who was actually an EV conversion kind of guy in the scene. He was saying that, they'll be able to turn off your EV, and it's that's what the government are going to do, or whoever. And I said, well, how are they going to do that? And it's like, oh yeah, well, they're bringing this thing in 2026. Apparently they are bringing in something in 2026 where they can turn off your car from a police chase point of view, and I think there is an element to that as well. But that's not just EVs, like Kevin was saying earlier. It is petrol cars as well. So I'm not sure why people are bashing EVs for that.
And
people seem to have short memories. They forget fuel station blockades and all the other things. It doesn't take that much to stop the flow of fuel around the country. It does take a lot to stop. There's a lot. It's an awful lot more difficult to stop people from getting access to electricity to move around the country. And if the whole curfews and all this sort of stuff, it just, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't stack up to me.
Yeah. And when you think from a technology standpoint, technology moves on for those connected technologies. The example, well, you can give two examples, is 3G is being sunset. So that means that all Renault Zoe Generation 1 Renault Zoe owners have been given a message to say all their connected services from their cars cease from the end of the year because there's going to be no 3G network to support them. And I think wasn't it the 2G network where car wings on Nissan was struggling? The early Nissan systems were being sunset as well. So stuff moves on. So those connectivity things would not work with those cars because they'd have to switch on an old network to actually communicate with them.
I think there is a way around the Renault Zoe one. I think there is another thing that you can add to the car to make it connected again. I can't remember what it was, but I think there are people out there to connect these sort of things. I think it was the same thing that you can connect with the Nissan Leaf. Oh God, the name escapes me. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, well, some people would argue it's a bit like having a phone, an EV, that once it's out of date and the battery's dead, it's done. But a really good example of the fact that, well, EVs don't just get thrown away is the perfect example of a couple of videos ago with Russ. He had an electric 106, which was a 1999. It still went, the motor was good. The batteries were still good. They were taken out, but he actually upgraded the batteries and he's upgraded the motor. He's just made it a better car. He's hot rodding, or is it cold rodding? I'm not sure. But I think, Alex, you put a post up recently on LinkedIn about, will EVs be like classic cars to be redone?
Still going.
Yeah. It's still going. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that think that EVs won't ever be classic cars, but there's already some classic kind of EVs that are quite sought after. You look at the Lotus, slip of the tongue there, Tesla Roadster, for example.
Yeah.
That's quite a desirable thing.
And remember what we saw in the classic car show, that Skoda Favorit electric that's been restored. Yeah, there was a small number of Skoda Favorit electrics then it was actually in the NEC classic car show, and they've been saved. And look at the heritage fleet with the VW. The VW, I can't remember, you know the name of it, Alex.
Roma. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Foxhound Follies is just saying that there's a company in Australia upgrading IMEV's Ions and the other one. So the Peugeot, the Citroen, and the Mitsubishi. Yeah. So what are they putting in them? Are they upgrading the batteries and the motor, or just re upgrading them? That'd be interesting to know.
It's been interesting with that thread, listening to people's arguments that EVs will never be classic cars, because every single thing that they've said about them also applies to petrol cars and diesel cars and hybrids and everything. And in many cases, is also already being disproved by the current classic car scene. The likes of your Festival of the Unexceptional, where people are bringing old Cavaliers and you've got concourse restored Cavaliers. I mean, those cars they've inherited a charm because they take people back to the things that they remember when they were younger. And for a generation of kids, Tesla Model 3s are going to feel so different to the cars they had beforehand. So the context for this was someone posted a picture of a Dodge Charger and a Model 3, and it says at the top, nobody's going to restore a Model 3 in 50 years. So I put it up on LinkedIn and said, of course they will. Absolutely. It'll be a tiny portion, as it is with your current kind of everyday classics, of the overall number, because they've made them in vast numbers. But there will be people who grew up with them, will find a mint one somewhere, and they'll be like, God, I remember my parents having one of those. And they'll buy it and they'll look after it and they'll preserve it because it'll remind them of the things that they grew up with. The farting seats and the games on it, and the things like that. It will have felt so different to whatever their parents had before, that I think there'll be a deep ingrained memory of the moment that their parents went electric, and for a whole generation.
Oh, we've lost him again. Yeah, I completely agree with Alex. I mean, I'm actually sat in a Tesla Model 3 right now because my garage is blocked up. But although I'm not sure if how long are they going to last? I've in my mind, I don't know if you agree with this, Kev, but it does seem to me that a lot of people and a lot of the evidence I see out there that batteries are only really good for about 10 years. Mileage wise, you can absolutely batter them. There is arguments against that, because you look at Nissan Leaf, 2011, 2012, they're still going okay, although the battery degradation is pretty awful. But it'd be really, really interesting to see more sample size to see what the life of a battery is, and when it does need a battery upgrade. But I think we're straying from the point here, because we were at 15 minute cities, which is often the case because it's quite a big subject. So we think it's all about control. I say the others think it's all about control, and I do think that there is a lot out there at the moment that is trying to control us, whether it's cameras and this, that, the other. That's my opinion. I'm not sure if you share the same, Kevin. But do you think that there's elements out there, certain companies or governments that are trying to gain that extra control? And is that why people are a little bit worried about this 15-minute city, which is clearly not a thing?
I think the problem is that technology has become such a big part of our lives, and people worry about control, but then you take your mobile phone, how much will you give up just for free Google Maps and stuff like that, or Apple Maps? You're actually carrying a tracking device with you all the time. And I think the EV argument is getting wrapped up in that, because EVs are seen as being quite high technology, and people think the technology is there to control us. But you think of all the benefits it's brought us, and actually it helps. But I think it's just, I think most of the issues, if you've got nothing to hide, why would you need to worry about that technology? I'm not bothered with my phone in my pocket, and the fact, every month you get a Google report saying these are all the places you've been. So it's not just you getting that data. Obviously, you're handing that data to big companies, and I think that's where people are confusing it. So they're worried about governments getting big data, but actually you're giving big corporate companies that data where there's far less control, because it's about you've given up a lot of control. And I think that's where people see it's a pushback against control, which they think it is, but it's in the wrong direction.
Well, the way I see it is, yes, the governments are trying to do this, that, the other, but ultimately the government are pretty much paid for both sides by the bigger companies anyway. Whether it's hopefully we won't get taken off for this, but BlackRock and all the other ones, they seem to be the ones that are, trying to control us, and with the old military industrial complex and the pharmaceutical companies. Honestly, the amount of stuff that's out
think
there that some people. Sorry, go on, mate.
Yeah, I think it's just people perceive those to be the case. And I think it's actually, there's no real interest in, there's nothing to gain from any of those organizations controlling you and stuff. At the end of the day, they want people to buy stuff. And that's the big thing about consumerism, isn't it? People want people to buy stuff. And if you can sell more, it makes you more money.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the biggest thing with the car sharing model and all those things. When you go back to that, going back to 15-minute cities, is people like nice shiny things. That's why car ownership it's kind of a status thing, isn't it? If you've got the people who care about cars and the people who don't care about cars. If none of us cared about cars, we'd all be driving around in little Euro boxes that just did what we needed them to do. There wouldn't be the need for your Teslas, your Ioniq 5s. People are buying stuff to give themselves a perception of it. And EVs are quite expensive, and you'll find that at the moment they are predominantly bought by people who are a bit wealthier. So
yeah, there does seem to be a bit of a divide happening there. But quite a lot of the time, when people are buying a car on finance, they could actually be saving money by buying an electric car, but they're probably just either not, as Foxanne mentioned earlier, not in relation to what I'm just going to say, is education, and the fact that, okay, well, actually you have got a charger close by. You might not have a driveway, but you've got a cheap charger close by, or your neighbour's got a driveway, and they're happy to share with you, and they're only put like 5p extra or 10p extra on per kilowatt hour, so you're only paying 35p per kilowatt hour, and it is actually working out cheaper than having a petrol car. So, and it's got good longevity and all of it. So I think it's just knowing your options in that regard. But going back to what Foxdown Folly said, he said too much is being done by surveillance that would be better done with respect and education. And I think we're too far down the rabbit hole. I think the respect in this country is just out the window. It's just, politics and politicians and companies. It's just not there. I don't think that will ever come back, to be honest. I think there would have to be something quite dramatic, unfortunately, chaos and all the rest of it to happen before we got that back again, for everyone to come together. And that, unfortunately, it always tends to be either something to do with a disaster or war, which is sad to say. It's getting a bit dark, isn't it? Exactly. With these conspiracy theories, you have to ask yourself, what would they gain by changing the weather or bombing their own buildings, etc. I'm not sure about the weather thing. Someone was telling me that the other day, Nick, who's got the I won't say who it was actually, that they put clouds in the sky. I'm really not. I'm not with that one. That one's too far fetched for me. But yeah.
I mean, I think that goes back to all the conspiracy theories, like 15-minute cities. It's like, what would people have to gain by faking and making climate change? It's like, it costs billions, so why would you do it? So it's all these.
I think the key is that everything that the media tell you isn't necessarily true, and not just to get too closed in. But that's my opinion, not necessarily Kevin's. But I don't take any notice of any kind of media out there these days. I try and stick with the independent media because it tends to be less biased as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the 15-minute. Sorry, go on, mate.
It's the same with all industries. You have good and bad journalists in mainstream media, and that is just, you've got so many vested interests, haven't you? And as we've seen from other YouTube channels, some negative stuff gets clicks, and unfortunately, the way it works is if you get clicks, it earns you revenue. So if you can be more and more extreme, you can make loads, and we all exist in our own, this is why we're trying to do this, to be more balanced about EVs, is to break out of that bubble. Because why would you surround yourself with everyone who likes EVs? Because you're going to get that same message. Whereas, there are problems, and we like to identify those problems. As we've talked before about lack of affordable charging infrastructure for everyone is the big thing, isn't it? And you'll have some people in the EV world who'll deny that.
Alex, you've missed some exciting stuff just then. We went really far down the rabbit hole.
Sorry,
it got a bit conspiracy fest going on. Mainly
I've brought him back to real life. So just about.
It's not real life. There's. I was just basically saying that. As Kevin alluded to, is the fact that a lot of people have got vested interest in a lot of things, which does tend to cause corruption and, in a lot of cases, control. So I understand why the 15-minute cities, when people don't actually look into it and someone goes, "Oh, it's about control," everyone jumps on the "it's about control" bandwagon. But in my opinion, there are a lot of things that certain big organizations are doing to control us. So that's what I was just getting across in my higgledy-piggledy way. So there we go. 15-minute cities, they're fine. You don't need to worry about them.
Yeah, your car is not going to count 15 minutes and then just shut down. I mean, from purely just logistical point of view, it would be very messy, the roads, if all these cars are stopped 15 minutes away from your house.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's because it's 15 minutes walking as well, isn't it? It's kind of the ability to just kind of get out of the house without needing to jump in a car. And actually, I mean, I love driving. I love going for a road trip. I absolutely love it. I do not love driving down the road to my local supermarket. I do not love doing the school run and just sitting in traffic on the school run. I don't love any of that stuff. Like I wouldn't miss those journeys at all if I never had to do them again. That's not where the fun comes, is it?
That's a really good shout. You don't enjoy those, oh no, I've got to go. I live in a village, and to go the other side of the town to go somewhere. Do you know what I do? If I can, is I jump on trikey, because that makes it fun again. Because not normally because people are pointing and laughing, and also because it's just dangerous and exciting. But you just don't want to be in a car. Just sometimes it's fun, but just stuck in traffic. I suppose if you're in a manual gearbox, even worse. So that's where the electric car, I think, is a little bit nicer when you're in traffic. To be fair, if anything. Unless you've got some stinky diesel in front of you, you need to have the heaters on. Roland Moore, can any existing city become a 15-minute city in this country without a total rethink and rebuild?
I think the opposite. I actually think a lot of them already are 15-minute cities. I think it's more the villages and towns on the outskirts that have the problems. We certainly, Cardiff, where I live, is a network of little villages that have all been stuck together over time. They've all got their own little hub of shops and things that are local. Most of the time you're within walking distance of the schools. We are quite densely packed here. It obviously differs if you're a little bit further out of town, but I think we actually, a lot of us are actually quite used to, if you can walk to your corner shop, your local takeaway, and your school and your pub and stuff, you're already enjoying quite a lot of the benefits of living in a 15-minute city.
Yeah, and you think lots of the people who have the conspiracy theories about it will be quite happy to be able to walk to their local pub. And
they might well be tweeting about it on the way to their local pub as they walk down the road and kind of go, God, wouldn't it be awful if we could... It's great having loads of stuff on my doorstep, especially during, actually, without wanting to dig at the conspiracy theory side of things with this, during lockdowns and stuff, the ability to actually just not go anywhere by car and just walk around locally. Not that I enjoyed lockdowns in any way, shape or form, but actually showed how much stuff I have got on my doorstep and how often I don't need to pick up the keys. The row of shops down the road, I quite often end up popping back in there after I've been somewhere, which is daft, really. It's walking distance from the house. If I need to pop out and get something, I can get there almost as quickly on foot as I can, taking the car and parking it, and walking the rest of the way. It's nuts.
I'm going to go back to Steve's point, which was about third comment, which was too many people, too many lazy people in this country and don't understand. And I'm going to pick up there on the lazy side of things, because I think all of us have got a bit lazy in a way, and it's often quite often it's a time thing as well, because we have got a lot of things going on. It's always a time pressure. There is a lot of time pressures out there. It's like, oh, I need to get here, I need to get there, I haven't got time. But maybe if we did have a bit more time, we would, and we would have more time to cycle to the shops. Okay, if you don't really fancy cycling, a hybrid bike's a lot easier, or an e-scooter or something like that, or simply walking, because that's a lot more pleasant. And I'll tell you what, it'd be even more pleasant if there weren't a load of dirty diesel. I only pick on diesel here, but dirty diesel trucks and cars going past, because they stink as far as I'm concerned. Walking down a road with electric cars going past is a much better experience. We had a convoy of mainly Teslas and one Honda E driving through Market Harbour after a modified EV meet today, and we had a procession of probably about 10, 11 electric cars. People must have thought, what's going on here? Other than the fact that they were like chavved to the max. And to be fair, one of them had a speaker exhaust system on it, so it wasn't all quiet, but at least it was nice fresh air, And there's nothing better than being out and about where it's nice fresh air, and it's not this clattering old banger. I'm not talking about Polo G40s here, Alex. You're right. Oh, that was, didn't it?
Doesn't mean it.
Yeah, it was mooted in the 70s on Tomorrow as well, that by 2000 we'd only work 3 days a week. Well, they are suggesting that, aren't they? The Labour government, 4 days a week. I don't know if that's been if that's going to happen, or if that's got any legs on it. Have you guys heard about that?
I think a lot of the stuff, though, is, if you look at the stats, in the UK, we work more hours than any European country. So we've gone the other way, where it's not unusual for people to do massive numbers of hours.
Equally, though, we've now at least got used to the flexibility of thinking we don't all have to travel at the same time to the same places. There has at least been a recognition over the last few years of the ability to work from home, and that's all part of the same, I guess. Ultimately, the greenest journey is the one you don't have to make at all, right? The one that you can, the face-to-face meeting that you can have online. And I know that doesn't always fit, but the ability to kind of reduce your mileage completely is valid as well. So I think there's a willingness to kind of be more open in terms of office hours, working from home, and so on over the last few years, which has probably helped. I know certainly the average mileage in the UK has come down since 2019. It just hasn't returned back to those levels. Although it'd be interesting to see what the data is like, because we are starting to see more people kind of starting to insist on getting back to the office now. But it is nuts when you think everyone's all sat there in traffic, all going to the same sort of places at the same sort of times, and gridlocking the roads. And someone once said to me, "You're not in traffic, you are traffic." And I think that's true. And this is where you need to look at kind of rethinking the way that we travel, the way that we move, and the way that we think about these things. Being green isn't just about switching to battery power. That's obviously a big part of it, but there's being sensible with the way that you move, from a time efficiency, from an energy efficiency point of view. That we all kind of there's little changes that need, I think, to be made, and actually in a lot of cases they'll make life more pleasurable, because, as I said earlier, who wants to be sitting in a traffic jam? There's no fun in that. That's not a nice experience, is it?
Let's keep the EVs and the cars for those nice road trips. I mean, one of the things, going back to the time thing of 15-minute cities and EVs, is there's one bit where the legislation really hasn't caught up, is let's sort out the legislation for people to use e-scooters and micromobility. If 100%. People need to use them, let's sort it out. So maybe if people have to have insurance and certain standards for them, but let's just get it done so that people can legitimately use those e-scooters, and we've got regulation around them to keep people safe on the cycle route. Rules on how fast they can go and what you're supposed to wear.
The argument, sorry, Kevin. I think on everything electric, they did have a scooter that was registered and insurable. But I don't know how it was different. But as far as I'm concerned, scooters are not safe on the road if they only do 15 miles an hour. That, because I just think, yeah, fair enough. Tell you what, make the, and I hate driving 20 miles an hour. I really do. But in like little locations in the 15-minute cities, 20 miles an hour, make sure that the e-scooters and the e-bikes give them a 20-mile-an-hour top speed. That way they can go with the traffic and they're not slowing people down and all the rest of it. Because there's nothing worse than going 15 miles an hour on an e-scooter and a car coming past you. It's a bit like being on a bike as well, because the roads in the UK, they're pretty narrow. And a lot of people, and I know it's not right, people have got places to go, they won't give you enough space. I always make a point of giving people space, unless they get caught short and have to, zoom past them quickly because there's another car coming really quickly the other way. But maybe that could be brought in. Like, if it's going to be a 20-mile-an-hour city or town, what have you, then let's put that e-mobility up to 20 miles an hour to make it safer on the roads.
And
let's sort out the. Sorry, go on.
And I mean, with bikes and stuff like that and stuff, people have. If you've been to London, the way some of the cyclists drive there and the speeds they have, I think, would it be a bad thing for sort of a mandatory type of insurance? Because you can injure someone on a bike or a scooter and stuff. And I think we just need to be hotter on those things to make things safer for everyone, really.
There's an infrastructure of
like just jumping on a bike and having insurance. Sorry, Alex.
No, it's fine. Yeah, go on.
That's it. I was just annoyed.
Well, the other thing is on that front, on the whole mobility side of things, and actually robotaxis could fit into this entire ecosystem as well, is the UK needs to be consistent in terms of the infrastructure that kind of goes through all of these different modes of transport, whether that's a robotaxi, a bus, a train, even if you're renting an e-scooter, the ability to go. The reason people love cars is it's the convenience thing, right? I can jump in this or the Rifter or whatever, and I can just go somewhere, and I can get from here to there, load my stuff in here, get to the other end, unload it there. It's one thing. I haven't got to worry about lots of different providers. If I'm doing that via public transport, I've quite often got to book a taxi, and then maybe a train, and at the other end maybe I'll need a bus and or a taxi, and that might not quite get me to door. So the ability to have like a single source, again, I know people are going to kind of say, oh my God, from a conspiracy point of view, this is completely, open to controlling your ability to move. But the ability to book trips in a really convenient end-to-end way. So it's like, right, I'm at my home. Half a mile down the road, there is a shed, a scooter, for example, that will get me to the nearest train station. Pick that up, take it to the train station. Obviously not suitable when I've got the kids with me, but for business trips, say for example, if I was going to London, pick up the scooter, take it to the train station, leave it at the train station, jump on a train. Train takes me to London. I get off at the other end. There's a taxi waiting for me that then takes me, and I pay for it in one. Right at the moment,
I think Uber do that already on a lot of things. They've got so much on there now.
I'm not an Uber user, but it's not the common experience. I mean, I've had experience with public transport in the UK where I've actually waited in the rain with kids, looking at an app and a live departure board that have both promised a bus would come, and the bus didn't come. Complained about it because obviously the whole point of having an app is to get that live information. And I was told that the app doesn't use live information from the bus, and the bus company didn't own the bus stop, and therefore didn't own the bus boards. So you've got different pieces of information. The bus had actually been cancelled. I had two pieces of information in front of me, and neither of them were correct. Neither of them were telling me in real time the status of the bus. And it's like, if one bus organisation can't get this right, what hope do we have in connecting all of this together? There needs to be, and I think it's going to need some sort of central government intervention to try and kind of enforce this and get it put into place, that everything needs to kind of join together a bit better to, if you don't offer people good alternatives to using a car, they're going to use a car. Especially if those alternatives are more expensive and less convenient. Why would you bother?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think with AI becoming better and better, I think AI could be very much utilized for stuff like that very, very easily. I think there's
AI could be used to distribute an entire fleet of robotaxis where they're commonly needed, and all the rest of it. It can spot those trends and instantly kind of say, on a Wednesday morning, we need this many cars roughly in this part of Cardiff, for example. This time we need this many here. We kind of, right, we're looking, there's an event in town, we need a load of them there. You know, you can analyze all of those things if you start to connect these things up.
I mean,
Was it the Stagecoach app, Alex? Was it the Stagecoach app?
It wasn't the Stagecoach app.
Oh, there we go. You'll have to let us know how you get on with that one, Dad. Right, sorry.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you see AI in action. Have any of you been to Milton Keynes and seen the little robot delivery things that they use logic
in our village? We've got them in our town village. Yeah, co-op.
Starships. Are they Starship ones?
Yeah, and you can get them to play music when they arrive. So when they arrive, they start playing music. But it's obviously really expensive. But you know, with Uber Eats and all the rest of it, you could argue it's going back to that lazy again, or convenience disguised as lazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's what's that film? Is it WALL-E? Where the humans are floating around the earth, waiting for Earth to become habitable again, and they find the weed, and then amazing. No, I can't remember the name of the other robot. Anyway, goes back, and all the humans are on this ship, and they just do nothing. They're just massive blimps, blobs, whatever you want to call them. And that is the future of the human race.
True fact. Eve, the robot, the egg-shaped robot. My oldest named our daughter after the robot, so my daughter is called Eve after the egg-shaped robot from WALL-E.
There we go.
True story.
I didn't even know that one. I knew one of them was named after a car, but a racing driver. But I don't know.
I nearly called my eldest Sylvia because that was my favorite car at the time. Ironically, her best mate is called Sylvia. So
no way.
Yeah. Lucky you didn't like a GT86. That would be a really weird name for a child.
Did you guys listen to Sniff and Smith the other day? And they were talking about name your favorite car, the 12-hour clock. So it was like 4:05, the Peugeot 405. And like they're doing 4 minutes to 10, the 956, and stuff like that. Anyway, sorry, it just thought about it. But yeah, so 15-minute cities, nothing to worry about. You're going to be okay, but watch your back because there's other stuff coming.
And I'm guessing, Tim, you've already put your order in for an Optimus then.
No, not until they're the same price as cars. Because I'd have, plus I'm not going to say. Yeah, I mean, there's still jobs that could be done around the house. I'm not going there. Hang on, what we got here? So I was nearly called Romeo or Romeo. Is that Romeo? Is the spelling the same? I'm not really with it right now. I'm guessing
that would be the same as ours.
So, Roland, be careful. AI is not the
panacea. Panacea.
There we go. To all problems, Google alone use almost as power electricity on AI centers than we use. Yeah, they need their own nuclear power stations. AI. It does seem that way. So I was a little bit worried that the fact that we have got a nuclear power station, even though we've got all this wind and solar, but if they're going to build some AI centers in the UK, we probably need those nuclear power stations. But yeah, AI is an interesting one. It's what did Elon say on the video? 80% good, maybe 20% bad. There's going to be good and bad.
The power issues is largely an issue with the LLMs, though, is it the large language models, because they have to engage large amounts of information to form anything out of it. Whereas if you've
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Is your family Italian? You didn't look for Italian when I met you. Sorry, Alex.
No, I was going to say a large part of the problem with AI is the fact that they have to engage vast amounts of data in order to produce anything. The large language models, the generative AI stuff, is incredibly power hungry because of the way that it kind of, you ask it something and it kind of opens up a vast amount of data to kind of produce, to generate supposedly original but hashed together content from other people. That's part of the reason why it's bad on power consumption. But yes, it is it is a little bit worrying that in the middle of a climate crisis, we are, consuming vast amounts of energy to produce videos of Will Smith eating spaghetti. That seems to be an interesting use of power in the current context.
I saw a really good one with what was it? I think this was probably more of a face app though, with Gordon Ramsay's face on lots of people at this 90s, 80s dance thing. That was good.
Yeah,
an absolute classic. God, those birds were ugly. And I think we've kind of slowed down to a halt with 15-minute cities. Although Foxhound Follies, he's going to say his dad is called Papa John or something in a second. No, sorry, that's not correlated, is it? Yes, it's totally true. She is called Giulietta, Italian for Juliet, and I was nearly called Romeo. There we go. So yeah, the Italian car family. Okay, well, maybe we should end on this. If you had to call your family a set of model names of a particular brand, what would it be? It wouldn't be Ford because you wouldn't have Escort, would you? For a start.
Escort and Cougar.
Lovely wife, Mondeo. It'd have to be Italian because they've got the best names, right?
Yeah, Panda, Panda and Cinquecento. My lovely daughters.
I think I'd go for the TVR. So I'd have the lovely Chimera, and maybe the wife would be Cerberus, and and the Vixen. The Vixen. There we go. So yeah, mine will be TVR, obviously. TVR.
I was going to say, hopefully no one likes like Audi or BMW names, because it'll be odd when if you call someone 318.
That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, is that everything these days is number based. No one's got any names.
Well, yeah, I suppose a lot of them with EVs are going to numbers, aren't they? Ioniq 5, 6, 7, EV.
Well, Foxhound Follies, I know he's laughing at his comment again. He's actually converting a Reliant Kitten to electric. And I'm literally dumbfounded why he hasn't done an Italian car. Now I know all this information about the names and stuff. Sorry, my dad said Porsche, but I think all the numbers are like you're saying, Kevin, is just off piece. Oh, sorry, Fox. Sorry, Fox. Of course, in the name. Sorry, Alex. What are you thinking? What brand? And Kev?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, as you say, I mean, yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm stumped. I've got a head full of spending it, sorting out computer stuff, and a head full of cold at the moment. So yeah,
I'm going to choose it for you because you're wearing a Jeep Gilet. So Shogun, Wrangler,
Avenger.
Yeah. Well, like a superhero family, that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be an interesting thing at school, wouldn't it? Cherokee and Avenger.
There you go.
Grand Cherokee could be the big brother or the dad.
Grandpa,
yeah.
There we go. Panda. Yeah.
There were some really nice ones in the NEC Classic Car Show. Some pandas that were like, again, unexceptional, but like mint original ones, wasn't there? With the original metal steel grille.
So Kevin, are you going with BMW 118, and or are you gonna?
I can't think of any brand at all. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be one of the Italian brands, isn't it? Because they're pretty good at naming cars.
It's got to be. Is it the Doppler?
well, not all the cars are well named. He's multiple Doppler. It's like that's. I wasn't thinking Fiat, to be fair.
Good old multi-spas. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd end on that because it just seemed like a good idea at the time. But how wrong I was. But
everyone's numbers these days. The days of kind of good old, decent names have kind of disappeared a little bit, haven't they?
Yeah, they're bringing back the old ones, aren't they?
I suppose it's hard to do language that works across multiple countries without sometimes being rude or offensive to someone, because one language might mean something different to another. Yeah. So I suppose numbers are kind of universal, aren't they?
Well, my dad's gone for the Lamborghinis now, going Diablo. Nice. And the Countach. It's a good shout, actually. The Lamborghinis. It's a good shout. I had a Doblo. Oh, he's back again. I had a Doblo, but wouldn't name my kids after it. I called my daughter Rosa or Rosa. I don't think there's a car with that name. There's Rossa Red, isn't there, for the Ferrari, right?
I suppose you could say Testarossa from Ferrari, couldn't you? With the
Yeah.
You could get away with some of the Kia names, I suppose. You got Karen's, Kia itself,
Stinger.
Dinger,
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually it's a good shout. Actually, the Kias, yeah. Well, on that
on that
fizzle of bombs. Thanks everyone for listening tonight. I think these interesting conversations about 15-minute cities. I'm not sure what we're going to do next week. I think it's probably going to be to do with should you electrify a classic car? Because or we might think of something else. But if you guys have got any suggestions, whack it in the comments after this has gone out. Please share, please like, and thanks everyone for watching. Thank you and listening, of course. So we'll see you next week.
Cheers.